Sydney Stone is pleased to present a series of how-to videos using the RSL2702S all-in-one hot and cold laminator. There are 6 videos in this laminating series covering both single and double side hot laminating, cold laminating, decaling, and mounting. This is the finished result of single side cold laminating using the RSL2702S hot and cold laminator. When you first turn the 2702S on, it defaults to hot. You must therefore immediately push the cold hot button and put the laminator into cold mode. This will prevent the rollers from heating up. When we're cold laminating, our laminating film should be placed on the film shaft with the film coming off the bottom of the roll towards the front of the laminator. We then take the laminating film, web it underneath the main idle bar, and I bring forward at least a foot or so of the material over top of the safety guard. We then separate the laminating film from the release liner. The release liner gets attached to the take-up core. I'm going to turn this film back so that I now have access to put some tape on the release liner and tape it to the core. Once we've got the release liner attached to the core, I'm going to wind it by hand until the release liner has actually overlapped itself, in other words, at least 1.5 revolutions onto the core. This will prevent the film from accidentally slipping off when we start the laminator. I'm then going to take the excess laminating film and fold it up on itself. This will prevent exposed adhesive from sticking to the laminator when we web it up. I'm now going to take the film and put it underneath the safety guard. Like so. I'm then going to remove the feed table, and I'm going to use a piece of backing paper and or scrap paper as protection for when we're webbing up the laminator. At this point, I'm going to make certain that my laminating film is down past the center nip point of the 2 laminating rollers, and I'm going to take my scrap paper, which should be wider than the film, and I'm going to tack it on in the upper portion of the top roller. We now replace the feed table, which has a safety interlock switch. Bring our safety guard back down, which also activates a safety switch. We then use a leaderboard. A leaderboard is simply a rigid piece of material, no thicker than approximately 3/16 of an inch, with a nice straight leading edge that we're going to use to push the film and the backer paper into the laminator. We do this with the rollers in the fully open position. We slide this in. Again, wind up by hand the excess liner. Now that we've got this leaderboard placed into the rollers, we can now close the rollers to where we feel pressure and run the laminator. Once the leaderboard has exited the cut line at the back of the laminator, you can stop the laminator and remove the leaderboard. When you're cold laminating, you want to make certain that the laminating film is never wider than the paper or graphics that you're laminating. If the laminating film is wider than your graphics, the exposed adhesive outside the edges of the graphics will stick to the rollers and other internal components of the laminator. Once we've got the leaderboard through, the excess paper can be trimmed off. I like to use the grooves in the feed table as a cut line to remove the excess paper, which I'm going to save. We can now take our graphics, which you can see are slightly wider than the laminating film, bring it up to the leading edge, center it, and start the laminator and feed in the leading edge of the graphic. We can actually change speed during lamination. However, for cold laminating, we do not recommend that you run faster than speed 3. You can continue to run your graphics by simply butting the leading and trailing edges together. At the end of our last graphic, again, take a piece of scrap paper, craft paper, slide it underneath the trailing edge. This piece of scrap paper should be at least 12 inches or 30 centimeters long in order to be long enough to allow the graphic to exit the rear of the laminator. This now again prevents any adhesive from sticking to the rollers or other parts of the laminator. We now cut off the graphics using the built-in cutter. Start anywhere into the graphic, push down, and then cut the graphic off in both directions. The graphic is now laminated. You'll notice that the backing paper at the trailing edge, this will come off as soon as we cut this with a knife, as there's actually nothing which is sticking the graphic to the backing paper. Sydney Stone carries a full range of both hot and cold laminating films and supplies. Please call us or visit printfinishing.com for more information.